My name is Paul Barron. This is TechPath. We're going to dive into what Cathie Wood is really prepping the Bitcoin community for in what I think ARK Investment is looking at in terms of kind of an evolution of how their innovation fund is actually moving to some very interesting understandings. And there's several things here that I want to break down, guys, because when you look at Bitcoin and where kind of this whole environmental movement has been pushed because of Elon Musk, Cathie Wood's actually on the other side, which is ironic when you look at how Cathie Wood basically looks at Elon Musk as basically the one individual in terms of a CEO that is innovating technology at a very rapid pace. And for her and him to actually be on the opposite sides of this, including the area around where environmental good is being done by Bitcoin, I think is very interesting. I want to jump to a couple things, but before we get to it, let's jump over to the market cap for today. And let's take a look and see where we are. Bitcoin currently in at, let's zoom in on that a little bit. Market cap at 1.6 trillion. Zooming in, and of course, Bitcoin holding at 36,838. This is being filmed during Bitcoin Miami. So I don't know if everybody's kind of just partying and having a good time at the conference, but Bitcoin seems a little bit, and as you can kind of see, it's moving around slightly. So Ethereum holding in at 2679. And then, of course, as you can kind of see, Binance Coin and so on. The big mover of the hour, of course, is UMA. And you can kind of see it really kind of moves all the way down to Maker and Filecoin, which has kind of come back as well. So there's some interesting things happening in the space, and I want to kind of dive into what Cathie Wood is really talking about. She set a price target of $500,000 when you look at a price target of 500,000, which is pretty amazing in the sense of how is she getting there? And her explanation is pretty straightforward. One is that the potential for institutional capital moving into the space, especially with what we see right now, which is a lower entry point than it probably has been for quite some time other than pre-2021, and the opportunity of that capital coming in at a fairly significant rate. Now, one thing she said in a podcast was that she thinks that capital will come anywhere between 5% and 10% of their balance sheets into Bitcoin or into cryptocurrency in general. If that were to happen and you extrapolate where that's going, the amount of capital that's sitting on the sidelines currently in structured and institutional finance, that pushes the price of Bitcoin to $500,000. And they think that's a conservative number. ARK did an amazing report, and I want to jump into it a little later here in the show. But before we get to that, I want to kind of follow the yellow brick road here of where she's going with this. There's a couple of things that she thinks is really starting to set up Bitcoin for quite a potential ride. One, of course, is the transition to renewable energy. And as you guys know, if you follow our channel and follow anything we're doing, Cathie Wood and ARK are really focused in on two things. One is, of course, innovation, technology that is moving in a very fast pace to really change society, and the other is how renewables will become part of that future. And of course, Tesla leads the pack in terms of renewable, but there's a lot of other companies that really kind of move in that direction. But if you think about the financial system and what kind of impact that potentially has on the overall socioeconomic area, finance could be one of the biggest factors of where renewable energy could be driven to. Now think about this, and this is something that Cathie Wood is talking about, is that the potential here is, especially with China and them moving into the digital yuan and pushing the Bitcoin miners somewhat out. If you think about a decade from now, most likely all of Bitcoin mining will be removed from China and possibly put here into the US and abroad. And the ability for that to really accelerate renewables could become a huge factor, especially if it helps accelerate solar. And there's something in their report, the recent white paper they just did on kind of how this could transition, is that potentially solar could actually be accelerated through the use of Bitcoin mining, because Bitcoin mining in itself could be an opportunity to help push solar development and solar adoption, which would only generate more renewable energy. Because as you guys all know, if you're looking at our channel, solar is a huge opportunity for how we potentially can get into excess renewable energy. And if we have excess renewable energy, the potential to do Bitcoin mining is there. So that, I think, is why ARK is continuously moving into this. But in this interview that they just did, basically it was Anthony Scaramucci, you know, Scaramucci, you know Anthony from the Trump Foundation, and then, or excuse me, the Trump presidency, and then you kind of saw him move away. Interesting, that's a Game of Thrones there, because that's exactly what we're playing. But in the podcast that they did with Bitcoin Magazine, basically they both said, listen, this is going to essentially become the reserve monetary system for the world. And when you think about what China is doing with the digital yuan and why this is such a very important time, over the next decade, there is going to be a struggle of where that reserve currency is going to go. Many people do not think it will be the US dollar. They think it will be some sort of digital dollar and or a cryptocurrency, and the likelihood of things pegging to Bitcoin and the Bitcoin price is more likely than not. The other thing that when she looks at this, and this is something that she's kind of focused in on, and this is, I think, where her and Elon kind of land on different sides of this, and that is that she thinks obviously the crash was because of the environmental and sustainability movement that is moving and causing, you know, when you think about it, Larry Fink, BlackRock is one of the #1 investors in Tesla's board and on Tesla. And if you think about what Larry Fink and Elon probably are doing in terms of conversations, is like, listen, we need to get more sustainable. We need to be able to invest in sustainable movements because that's our mission. Cathie Wood is on the flip side. She thinks this is just a short-term problem that eventually could accelerate in a big way, moving Bitcoin to an absolute all-time high. So I want to jump to a report that ARK Invest just published, and this is the one on impact investing. Let me kind of zoom this down a little bit so you guys can kind of see it. Impact investing, the innovation to key accelerating progress toward the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, was really kind of the focus of this report. The thing that they really focused in on, and I want to kind of zoom up on this right here, is the element between environmental action and infrastructure for the future. Affordable green energy, climate action, life below water, and then life on land, and then sustainable cities, innovation, and then quality education. The idea behind all of this that they really pushed into is that the potential here for what we're going to see in these big buckets of innovation, which will include blockchain and digital wallets, as you can kind of see over there on the right-hand side. What I think is happening, and what the ARK team has really kind of identified, is that energy storage and blockchain technology are on a collision course, and then the alignment of artificial intelligence starts to move into this place. And it's very rare that you have three major areas of innovations starting to intersect. In fact, I don't know that it's ever been done. When you look at what's happened in technology over the past 25 years, very, very few times have we seen the technology actually intersect with other major technologies, such as blockchain, which is essentially its own world, and then what's happening in renewable energy and autonomous mobility, advanced battery systems, all those kind of things that essentially could segue into where Bitcoin could be moving in that direction, which is why I think ARK is moving very quickly into a very outer edge innovation fund for what could be the future of cryptocurrencies and how our monetary system is put in play. All right, so I want to jump to this impact examples and some of the things that they really outlined here. If you look at artificial intelligence, the one thing they just dropped into that was digital wallets. Let me zoom in on that. Digital wallets can help bank the 1.7 billion people that are unbanked. So again, that's a big one. And also when you look at what they're doing over here in blockchain, with Bitcoin, let me kind of go down here, full cycle carbon emission tracking and transparency, which will require distributed ledger tracking of supply chains. This again, I think is going to be one of those areas where we start to see the blockchain actually connecting into the element of where sustainability and zero carbon or negative carbon scenarios will start to play into this. In a short way, what this could potentially mean is that Bitcoin could advance renewable energies faster and be able to utilize the blockchain to be able to score against the renewable energy and or companies that are moving in negative or zero carbon emission direction, which is exactly in the bull's eye of what Tesla is trying to do. So I think what she has said is that currently Elon and her on opposite sides of the table, both with a future vision, all on the same plate, in the sense that, yes, we do want to get to a much more clean environment, and it's very possible that Bitcoin could actually be one of the key things that will help us get there. In fact, ARK Investment is counting on this, moving it into the next direction and moving on into a potential $500,000 price point. Best of all, and I thought this was interesting in the Scaramucci and Wood interview with Bitcoin Magazine, is that they both kind of agreed that we could see the six-figure number in 2021, meaning a $100,000 price point in 2021. If we do see that kind of movement, it goes back to my theory and that I've talked about here on the show many times, and that is that institutional money and the potential of structured capital starts to move in this space at a level of which we've never seen before. Remember, we are still in the very early stage of where potential cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology is moving. Many of these scenarios are really kind of rolling. Either one, they're not completely vetted out yet. They're still in, if you look at where Cardano is, where ETH is, they're still trying to work through a lot of this. So we are still in the growth stage. It's kind of like when I compare this to what was happening in social media in 2007, what was happening on the internet in 1996. All of these kinds of things, these kind of growing pains, listen, we've lived through this before. The beauty is that the really advanced and early adopters are the ones that usually end up being the guys at the end of the game that have won all the chips. And I think that's where we are with Bitcoin. Definitely with Cathie Wood, I think, in the sense of, you know, maybe she's just a little bit ahead of her time, in the sense of she's picking out certain things, including seeing the movement we saw in innovation funds early this year. I think ARK needs to maybe in some cases actually slow down a little bit to try to keep pace of what and how slow we are moving. Even though everybody else thinks it's really fast, if you're in the tech sector, many of you probably already recognize this, is that we do feel that this is at a snail's pace and we could move faster. I've seen this for many times in my career, and it's one of those things that you recognize kind of up front. All right, so if you guys are listening in over on the podcast, make sure and subscribe. Give us a few stars over there. That's how we get great feedback from you. If you're here on YouTube, man, the number one thing you can do is hit the like button and share this video with someone who you think can help. If they're new to investing in crypto, maybe they're new to innovation and technology stocks, maybe they're just new to technology in general, this is a great place for them to get an education on where this is. We get some of the best and top CEOs in the market. And that's everything from, you know, EVs, robotics, AI, autonomy, and then of course cryptocurrency and kind of where we're going there with that analysis. If you have an idea for a show, send it to us to just producer@revernetworks.com. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, it's straight at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.